Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's your boy Ben and JB from JBM Sports Media coming at you guys with our first edition. And today we're going to be talking about the New York Yankees specifically, but we're going to go through every team's season projection before the season does start. But like I said, we're going over JB's team right here today, the New York Yankees 2026 season projection. And where do we start? I think we should start with the lineup. What do you think, JB? I think that's good. We'll start up with the lineup. Um,
Yeah.
Before we do, real quick, obviously, I don't know if you've been watching a little bit of spring training, but how do you feel about the Yankees heading into this year so far?
I mean, look, it's a couple of days into spring training. There's a couple of games that, have been completed already. I mean, it looks like Spencer Jones has changed his stance a little bit with his now it looks like his toe is a little bit more down on the ground and he's kind of pivoting towards the pitcher as opposed to lifting his leg and then placing
Right.
it down. So he looks a little bit more grounded. And the power looks like it's still there. And he's had a decent spring so far. Aaron Judge obviously has looked good. Listen, this lineup pretty much is the same, right? Everything looks the same as last year. Obviously, Anthony Volpe is not going to be in the starting lineup due to injury. It's going to be Jose Caballero, but he
Yeah,
was
let's just get into
fantastic.
that really quickly. This is the projected
Yeah,
lineup
he
right
was
here as we
fantastic.
see. We have batting leadoff Trent Grisham, then Aaron Judge in the 2 hole, Bellinger in the 3 hole. Hitting cleanup, we have Ben Rice, then Stanton, and then Jazz, Ryan McMahon, Jose Caballero that will be taking over. I would say for Volpe, how much? Maybe a month or so. I would have to think,
So far for a month, yeah.
and then Austin Wells in a 9 hole. Obviously, I think when you look at this lineup, and like JB said, it is practically the same as last year, except obviously Jose Caballero now being the starting shortstop. Obviously, with Volpe recovering from that labrum surgery. I mean, right off the bat, my mind goes into will we see production replicated from guys like Trent Grisham, from guys like even to an extent Jazz Chisholm going 30-30 last year? Will we see it replicated again?
I have more faith, obviously, in Jazz than I do in Trent Grisham. He could literally be a one-hit wonder last year. I'm really hoping that Jazz steps up a little bit more on the defensive side. He is what he is offensively. He gets really hot, and then he can get really streaky as well. But you can kind of deal with that if he's playing really good defense. And then sometimes his defense gets a little shoddy, and I like to see him play a little bit more consistent defense. Listen, Trent Grisham is just going to have to go out there, and obviously we know what he could do defensively. Very good glove, decent speed, where he can get to balls, tracks balls very well. But it's obviously him, having keep the strikeouts down and have if he can have that same offensive output that he had in 25. I mean, even if he did, almost a quarter of what he did, like if he could hit 24 to 25 home runs and knock in 60 RBIs and hit 240, it's a win for $22 million. But if he has the same year that he did last year, I mean, it's going to be an absolute miracle that he could replicate the year that he had last year. But
Yeah,
I'm really eager to see Ben Rice now for a full season. Giancarlo Stanton, obviously, if he can stay healthy and play 120 games plus, that'll be great. Who knows what's going to happen? And Ryan McMahon, if Ryan McMahon can hit 230 and run into 20 to 25 home runs and play the defense he plays, I think that's going to be a plus. So
yes,
to me,
I
it's all about
absolutely
their
agree.
bullpen. It's all about their bullpen, bro. It's not this lineup. I don't have real problems with the lineup constructed because when they're hot, they could be obviously the best, you know, matching up with anybody. But if their bullpen is not healthy or
Yeah, we'll get
performing,
into their pitching right now in a
it's going to be
second
tough.
as we break it down. But obviously, when you look at the lineup, kind of just to another eye point that I have Austin Wells, obviously in the 9 hole. I think it just depends what type of production you're going to get from him offensively because the last year he was dealing with the nerve injuries with both of his hands. So if he's able to produce even a little bit more offensively, maybe bat anywhere from 230 to 235 ish, I think that'd be a major plus. And how will Volpe look, obviously, when he returns back to the lineup? That's another thought I have in my head because
Right.
we saw how offensively wasn't really there, defensively as well, and wasn't really there with all the errors that he was committing left and right. So, how will Volpe perform when he does return, knowing that it's a big year for him more so? That's another question I
Uh,
do have about the lineup more so.
yeah, he's going to have to come through both on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. He hasn't been hitting for average. His strikeouts have been up, and his defense has been shoddy, like you said. So he's going to have to improve on both sides of his game.
Yeah, all right, let's move into the starting rotation right here, and that is led by Max Free to start off the year, and then Cam Schlittler, who is dealing with a little bit of back inflammation, but looks like everything's well. Will Warren, Ryan Weathers, and Luis Hill to wrap it up. I think to me, this rotation, obviously after Fried and Schlittler, it becomes a little bit. Well, this is just to start off. Obviously, we expect Rodon and Garrett Cole to come back earlier in the year, more earlier than expected from what
Right.
I was hearing. So, which is a great thing. But to start off the year, obviously, I think it's just not, I would say, as reliable as Yankees fans would want it to be, especially with a guy like Will Warren. Ryan Weathers, he has some great stuff, but injuries as well has plagued him in his career. And Luis Hill, I mean, could he finally put it all together? Because last year, after coming back from the injury, wasn't really all that. But we also saw him win AL Rookie of the Year previously. So it depends what version we're going to get from him.
Yeah, obviously, to me the biggest question mark is obviously Will Warren. Can he take the next step, and even be a three? I would have actually liked to see Weathers in the three spot and maybe drop Will Warren in the four and have Luis Hill in the five. You could even put Luis Hill in the fifth spot and put Warren in the five. There's a bunch of ways you could have this kind of play out. But you're hoping for Cole back at the first week of June, which is what they're shooting for, and you're hoping for the first week of May for Adon. So hopefully that he only misses about roughly 4 starts, and hopefully the Yankees are about 7 to 8 games over 500 when that happens. Hopefully he can come back and they've done played pretty well, because that would be beneficial for Rodon as well, that the Yankees are playing well. But and obviously Schlittler, he's got to stay healthy, and he's got to be a piece that's heavily dependent on, especially in this 2-hole. If he's going to be right behind Max, he's gonna be going up against a lot of good teams, and a lot of teams is top starters. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Cam. And obviously, if he stays healthy, to me, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, when it comes to Max Fried, obviously, I'm not concerned about anything when it comes to him in the regular season. I think really when we talk about postseason, that's where my concerns start arising for a guy like Max Fried. But yeah, the fact that Rodon and Cole are not going to be that far away is obviously going to help them. It's just going to see how they can weather the storm while they come back and while they're rehabbing more. So I will say I'm very excited to see Cam Schlittler in a full season, more so a full season of baseball, because I think this kid is absolutely nasty. I mean, we've seen it in that Red Sox performance, how talented this kid actually is. So I'm going to be super excited to see how he performs in a full season. Will he, adapt as well? Because now hitters will have more film on him. So how will that go? It's going to be a little bit of a battle,
Right.
but it's a huge year for Will Warren. I mean, there's no doubt about that, because look, he
Yeah.
at points looks good. He'll have one good start, but then he'll have 2 shitty starts. And you saw what happened
Yeah.
in the postseason. He was used as bait. I think that's the best way to put it. Just like go out there and buy some
Do
innings,
what you can.
basically.
Yeah. Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so if he isn't delivering in the regular season, his time, and we'll kind of talk about the prospects in a way, but his time in this rotation, and let alone maybe in this team, depending how they need necessities at the trade deadline, it might be coming to an end, because you have, in my opinion, more talented pitchers like Carlos Lagrange and also I'm blanking on Elmer Rodriguez Cruz that
Yeah.
could take that next step and maybe bumping out of that starting rotation. And that's the truth. Would you rather have Weathers and Hill, and then obviously bring in Cole Rodon and maybe put one of Weathers or Hill in the bullpen? That's going to be something the Yankees are obviously going to look at.
No, absolutely. And let me tell you something. I'm really hoping that Ryan Weathers has a good season. I feel like he's a diamond in the rough. I feel like this is a typical Brian Cashman move, where he finds a guy with talent that's kind of been used the wrong way and hasn't tapped into his full potential. And now
Yeah.
the Yankees will come in, and hopefully Matt Blake, can fix him. It's just really control and keeping the ball on the ground. I think Ryan Weathers has a lot of good stuff, hard stuff that he could, hit the ball in the dirt. And that's what the Yankees want. They want ground ball pitchers. They want pitchers that can get the ball on the ground. But he's got strikeout stuff too. I mean, his fastball is 98, 99. His sinker and his slider are very good. So I'm
Yes.
hoping that, he could make a name for himself in this rotation, to be honest with you. I don't want to really see him in the bullpen. I could see actually Will Warren go into the pen as like a last resort type of situation when Cole and Rodon come back. And if he doesn't perform well there, I think that's where you have to start talking about potentially cutting ties with Will Warren. But hopefully this rotation, gets where it has to get from the top 2, because then it's a problem once you start going in 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right when it comes to that. Obviously, now we're going to get into JV brought it up earlier, the Yankees bullpen right here. And we have the closer, obviously, David Bednar, one of the best closers of the game. And then setup guy in the 8th is currently scheduled to be Camilo Doval, and then in the 7th it's Fernando Cruz, which I don't mind that whatsoever. But then it gets a little bit interesting in these middle relievers with guys like Tim Hill, Jake Bird. I mean, we saw he had one appearance and then he went directly to AAA after that atrocious performance in Miami. But they brought back Paul Blackburn. I think honestly, Cade Winquest could be a truly like that could be a diamond in the rough if you ask me. And Cade Winquest, I don't mind
Yeah,
a guy like that.
they got him from
So
St. Louis. They got him from St. Louis, and he was pretty highly touted up there. And I think the Yankees may use him. They're going to have to use him in the bullpen. Their depth to me is it's iffy.
yeah, so when you look at the bullpen, obviously compared to maybe other teams in the AL East, and obviously we're going to go into predicting our win total for this team in a little bit, so stay tuned. Uh, I think yes, this is probably the weakest part of this team, and that's not a knock on guys like Doval, Hill. I would say Cruz, honestly, just my personal opinion. I would say Cruz is a little bit more solidified than a guy like Doval. I just prefer
Yes,
I would be a little bit more comfortable with Cruz being on the mound in the 8th inning than a guy like Doval. That's just my personal preference.
I
But
was
if they,
literally going to say that to start my segment. I was
yeah,
literally going to say that they got to switch that.
yeah, and I'm not saying Doval isn't a talented pitcher. I think he has great stuff. Yes, he does. But could he put it all together? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But I will say this: like for example, we went into the starting rotation to start off the year with Warren, Weathers, and obviously Luis Hill. If those guys get a little bit rocked, and then you have to go into guys like obviously we know Yarborough had a good stint with the Yankees last year, but guys like Paul Blackburn, Jake Bird, like it'll get a little bit tricky at that point in time.
Yeah, so Jake Bird's looked okay so far in spring. He pitched the other day and he looked pretty decent. I'm not worried, like you said, about Tim Hill, Cruz, Duvall, and Bednar. Well, Duvall obviously he's got to get control of his stuff. I think that's the biggest thing is controlling that fastball that could set everything else up. Once he starts getting high and away on lefties, usually is where he runs into some issues, and then with his fastball up to righties, he keeps throwing it high and in and not really throwing it for strikes. So that's where he gets in some trouble. And I think he has to fix that. Tim Hill can get anybody out, lefties or righties, not worried about him. Paul Blackburn is a guy that I kind of see him as a sixth inning guy where, he's just asked to pitch that one inning and be that bridge to the seventh inning. Maybe get you an out in the seventh if his pitch count is low and, they're trying to save on some guys. And obviously, Cade Woodquist, we're going to have to see what happens with that if he makes the team and comes up and pitches in the bullpen. Yarborough, you could actually, put Yarborough in the starting rotation if you wanted to and swap him out with a Will Warren or a guy like Luis Hill. But he's obviously another lefty to have in the bullpen, which I think is smart because the only lefty then would be Tim Hill if you took, Yarborough out of the bullpen. So I think that's
Yeah.
why Yarborough is there. But you could flip-flop them if you needed to or had to. And I do think the Yankees are going to look at maybe getting another lefty in the pen just to be able to mix and match a little bit better. So it's a wait and see thing. Obviously, with this bullpen, there is some talent. The Jake Bird was not horrible, but he had a really bad stint. Obviously, as a Yankee in that one outing, and then he got hurt and was out for the rest of the year. So hopefully he could bounce back. And like you said, you really got to hope for Cruz to have what he did. The type of season he had last year. Duvall's going to work on that control, and Bednar is obviously the horse. So this bullpen's really going to, have to get some big outs and some big games and really help the starting pitching out. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's really going to depend on how this bullpen goes into like the end of, I would say, July, early August, because if their usage goes up, I think that's where, you might have to make a move like you alluded to for another
Yeah.
maybe lefty at the trade deadline, because I'm not saying that it can't be a good bullpen, but could it be a great bullpen at the current time? I don't think so, but it could maintain. And, with the guy like Bednar, who could maybe even give you like a 5-out, 4-out save, which is totally possible for him. Look, I think there will be security with either Bednar and Cruz. I obviously do believe that Cruz should be the setup guy in the 8th, but I still, like I said, do believe in Doval. I just hope that he gets the control intact and everything's good with that. But yeah, there's good parts of this bullpen, but there's also, I would say, question marks to say the least. But I think
Yeah.
it's time that we actually get into the most anticipated part of this video, and that is going over our projected win total for the Yankees in the regular season via FanDuel. FanDuel, if you guys want to reach out to us here at JBM Sports Media, we would be glad to have you guys obviously sponsor us. That'd be amazing. But this is via FanDuel. We have the New York Yankees regular season, and the over-under is 90.5. I'll go first, and then I'll leave JB at the end for it. So for me, it's yes, they're bouncing it and running it back with the same team, and there's still a great amount of talent in that lineup. I'm not concerned about the lineup more so. Do I think there will be, like, for example, like a Grisham that will regress a little bit? Yes. But can Aaron Judge still be Aaron Judge? Obviously. I think that's without a doubt. Then it goes down to, like, okay, what is Bellinger going to give you this year as, you know, he goes another year, and defensively he's stellar. I have no problems with him. Ben Rice, I'm actually very high on this year. I think he could be one of the best first basemen in all of baseball, actually, if he does get consistent playing time. So the only thing that holds me back in going with the over, and I'm actually going to go slight under here. I'm going to go with the under, but I'm going to say they win from 89 to 90 wins, right in that threshold. And two reasons why I'm going to go with the under. One, because as we do and progress through some of the other teams in the AL, I think there's going to be more overs and more likelihood of overs. So I do think, obviously, if you guys saw our AL predictions, I have the Yankees as the 5th spot in the wild card, still a playoff team. But I do believe that since the Red Sox got better, since the Blue Jays technically did get better, and the Orioles did as well, they're going to maybe suffer some losses in that division that they probably wouldn't have the year before, but a still very competitive team that will manage to get significant wins in this division as well. So I'm going to go with the slight under, and I'm actually going to go with 90 wins exactly. So barely missing it. Barely.
All right, that's respectable. I have them going slightly over at 92 and 70. I see them winning a game and a half more than the FanDuel projection here. That would be 2 wins less than what they had in 2025 when they went 94 and 68. So I'm going to say 92 and 70. They finish the 2026 season, and they'll be either the 1 or 2 seed in the wild card, and then the 3rd seed obviously would rounding out another team. But I see them finishing in one of those first 2 spots. Listen, like, to me, it's like I said, it's not the lineup. I think if the lineup can produce, that'll be fine. If they're producing runs, it'll take a lot of pressure off the pitching. But what kind of Garrett Cole are we going to get? And what type of Carlos Rodon are we going to get with them missing some time and coming back and facing, some stiff competition? So, and like we said, what is the bullpen going to do? Are they going to be able to perform and be consistent and be a good enough bridge from the 6th, 7th, and 8th to get to Bednar? If that's the case, the sky's the limit for this team. But I do see them having, maybe in the beginning, a rocky start due to the fact there's no Cole and Rodon, and they're relying on some different arms to help them get through. So I'll say that they finish 92 and 70 this year.
Fair enough. Yeah, and obviously we always want to hear what you guys think about our projections. What do you have the Yankees going over, under 90.5? Let us know in the comment section. Let us know how you feel like the Yankees will just in general do this year. So we obviously want to hear your guys' feedback in the comment section. We love interacting with you guys. And this is first of all MLB teams that we're going to do here at JBM Sports Media. So make sure you subscribe here. Follow us on TikTok and IG at JBM Sports Media. Until the next time, we'll catch you guys later.